My name is Pat Griffith, and I am the Assistant Director for Youth Empowerment Services, which encompasses the Sandy Valley and the Cumberland Valley. I had worked at different jobs, doing different things, and nothing ever felt like it was where I was needing to be or where I should be. So I just had a prayer conference with the Lord, and I was like, I'm not going to go back to work until you tell me where you need me the most. I'm not going to try to work anywhere until I feel like you've led me where I need to be. So I prayed for over a year. I have always been in the youth program at CAP. The components of Youth Empowerment Services is summer camp, which is Camp AJ and Camp Shawnee. We also have our in-school program, where we actually send people into the schools and they teach conflict resolution, anger management. And then we also have our teen leadership program, which is something that we're really proud of. We work with them to help them prepare for what's coming, to be junior counselors potentially for the summer camp. And we do mock interviews with them. We do resume building with them. We'll do a leadership event. We do 2 or 3 teen event weekends, leadership weekends throughout the year to help get them prepared to be a leader at summer camp. Growing up here, you see a lot of things. A lot of kids having those rough backgrounds, and you just want to pour into them, help them, save them. You can't save them, but you like to think you can. I was reading up on it. Most nonprofits don't make it very far. Make it very long, many years. And for us to be at it for 60 years, it's just, it just tells you that the Lord has blessed us beyond measure to be doing what we're doing and helping people. We had a couple, I'll start with, we had a young girl who came to camp from the time she was little. And she grew up at camp. She became part of our teen leadership. She came from a really bad home life. We knew this. And she struggled, and she was a little bit hard to handle. One of the tougher ones, they say that sometimes the meaner ones you remember, but the good ones you don't. And that's awful, but that's kind of what happens. She just, didn't think that she would be able to do anything or go anywhere or be anything, because when you're in a crisis mode, you can't think beyond that. I know that she lived in that crisis mode all the time, and she never did think about what she could do beyond that. But being a part of our teen leadership program, she saw that she did have potential. She was smart, she could do it. So we kept encouraging her, talking with her, building on, that she could do anything she wanted to do. And she got a full scholarship to college. Nobody in her family had ever been. And when it came time for summer camp to come up, she was like knocking the door down, ready to come back and give back. She wanted to come back and be a counselor for summer camp. And I said, why do you want to come back and be a counselor at summer camp? And she's like, she said, I want to be the one to hold that little 6-year-old's hand like somebody held mine and be there for them and talk to them. We had a little guy who he had leukemia when he was 4. And he had never been to summer camp before. And so his mom called, and she was worried about sending him because he hadn't been to summer camp. And but he really wanted to go. It was something that he felt. They were trying to expose him to normal childhood experiences, and he was trying to live the moment, be everywhere. And so she told us the concerns, his health issues and stuff. He was cancer-free, but he was little, he was a little bit delayed, just normal stuff for someone who had been fighting cancer. And so he came to camp. He was something. He was just, he wanted to see everything. He wanted to do everything. He wanted to be everything. But he was really fragile, So of course we babied him. That's what we do. We baby all of them. We babied him and just one of our counselors that was, he was in their group, she carried around French toast sticks and Gatorade in her backpack. That's the only thing he would eat. And he would get weak, and stuff because he was a real picky eater. I mean, he'd been through so much. We found that he loved French toast sticks. So she carried those and Gatorade, which, electrolytes. Kept that in her backpack to keep him going. And so he made it through the week. And his parents they were like, everybody was there at the pickup and they were cheering and had poster signs and everything. They were so just excited that he'd made it all week. And so we're building hope, transforming lives, sharing Christ's love through service in Appalachia. That's what we do. And it's so relevant. And with the kids, we start out when they're little, we get them, they're 6 years old. Parents send I can't imagine. 6 years old, some of them come toting blankets and stuffed animals, and they're so little, and we just pour everything that we have into them. And you just hope and pray they come back next year. You see them the next year. And when they keep coming back, you just keep pouring more into them. We just meet them where they're at. We love them where they're at. We make sure that they get fed well. We've had kids who will stick food in their pockets and stuff. So we make sure that they get plenty of food while they're there. When you drop the kids off, when they get dropped off on Monday, they're so excited to go to camp. They can't wait to go. If they make it all week, on Friday, you think they would be ready to go home, excited. But when you have kids who cry on Friday because they don't want to go home, and you hate to send them, but they're not ours to keep. So, when you come up to camp and you can hear the laughter, you just drive up and you can hear kids laughing and having a good time, and you drive by the pool and you see them out there jumping around and having fun, and it's just a feeling of, I don't know, just pure joy. Listen, I've seen campers, and I can't remember their names, and that's why I call them all baby, but I was at Walmart, and I had walking across the parking lot, and it was dark. It was dark, and it was around Christmas time, and I had somebody say, "Hey," and I looked around. It's like, "Hey, Cap Lady." I just couldn't remember my name either. And I looked around, and there was a guy carrying. He had a lady with him, and he was carrying a bassinet, or not a bassinet, but a car seat with him. And I turned around, and he said, "Yeah." He said, "Do you remember me?" I said, "No, baby, I'm sorry, I don't." He said, "Yeah, I had you in school." He said, "You was the one who taught us about anger management and stuff." I said, "Oh, that's great." I said, "How are you doing?" He said, "This is my wife and this is my baby." I'm like, "Oh, that tells me how old I am." He said, "I've never forgot that. I've never forgot talking about bullying and talking about anger management." And he said, "That's just great stuff." And he said, I told my wife, I said, "There goes the anger management lady, the Cap Lady." So I get stuff like that. Of course, they hope that I remember their names, but I don't. I can't remember all of them. I've seen thousands of kids. There's no way I could remember all their names. But just stuff like that we see. I had a little guy when I was teaching in the schools. He was a handful. In the first couple of days I was in the classroom, he gave me a lot of trouble, but I was just calm with him and just kept talking with him. By the third day, or the third visit, we don't go every day, we go like weekly. About the third visit, he's like, "Hey," he said, "Are you a Christian?" And I said, "Well, yes, I am." He said, "Well, I could tell." I said, "Why?" And he says, "Well, just the way you talked, and the way you talked to me and stuff." He said, "I knew you had to be." I was like, "Well, that's what we want to be. We want to be, a lot for anybody." And from then on, he was my ringleader. He was my person that kept everybody calmed down. If they got out of line, he'd say, "Hey, mm-mm." So he kept the classroom all calm for me. And if anybody got out of line, he was always on top of it, lining them up. telling him to be good because I was there. So he was my little buddy then. We have more and more teens who are coming into the program. It's a sense of belonging, if you will. They want to belong to something, belong somewhere where they get that unconditional love and understanding. We want them to be able to do what they want to do, that they're not limited by their present or their past, that they can be what they want to be. So we try to empower them to do that. I worked in multiple places, and there's no place that you get the support that you get here. And I've raised, like you said, I've raised my family. CAP has changed them. One of my requirements, if you will, for my kids is that they give me a summer at camp. So they had to come and at least spend one summer as a counselor, or, just one summer at camp, give them back. And it transformed them. They see things different because it's not about them. It's about the kids that we're serving. And they've seen kids who, didn't have nothing to compare to what they've been privileged to have, So just being a part of that, having that CAP family, and if you've been here a while, chances are that you've lost a loved one. CAP rallies around that person who's lost a loved one. The support that you get, the understanding, the phone calls, people who show up to give you that support, it's just unreal. I don't know any place else in the world that you could work that you get that kind of support like you do here at CAP. So not just for your program, but for your family too. You're not just working here, you're also learning how to be a better person, how to be a better employee, a better manager, a better supervisor. Whatever role you're in, there's always something, encouraging to help you do better. And not just as an employee, but as a person. So I've grown so much being here at CAP, not only in my work life, but in my home life too. It's made a difference. So, CAP's always pouring into their people they're investing. Being that person who's giving the love and the understanding. It doesn't matter where you're at or who you are. If we're there, we're gonna pour into you everything that we have. Just like I think of the floods that we had recently in Eastern Kentucky. Man, everybody rolled out for those, and people. Home repair was heading that up, but all these other programs jumped in and went to work too. So it doesn't have to be your specific program. When someone needs help, you all just fall in. So I think that and people see that, they're like, wow, you guys really jump in there and help out. Of course, it's a calling. God leads us to help people. There was a family we got a call about where the mother had cancer, and she had 4 kids, and they lived in a trailer, and it was hot. They didn't have air conditioning. We heard all kinds of stories of what they were living in, but we didn't know till we got there. It was so bad. We opened the refrigerator door, and there was hot dogs in there, just open. I don't know how long they'd been there, and that was it. That's all they had in the refrigerator. The mother had cancer, and the father had left. And the grandmother had also had cancer, but they were both terminally ill, and they were trying to raise these 4 kids who were relatively young. There wasn't a one over like 13, and down to a 4-year-old, and he didn't talk. He hadn't spoke. We called in Teresa, who works in elderly services. They were there. Our youth and teen, at that time we had a youth and teen center, we were there. Camp Shawnee was there. We had counseling, we had home repair, we had op sharing. Everybody just poured into that family. we came in, we called an exterminator. He came in for free because he does that for Cap sometimes when it's a really bad situation. He's like, I do this stuff because he said, I'll even come back and make sure. So he went and exterminated. We went and we got mattresses. We bought them dressers, chests, filled them full of clothes. School was getting ready to start. They didn't have new clothes. They didn't have shoes. I mean, it was just a horrible thing. You just don't think about people living like that now. I mean, you think of all the modern stuff that we have. You know, you just don't think of people who are in that bad of a shape that live like that. It was awful. But we came in and we cleaned the house up. We got them an air conditioner going. We filled the refrigerator full of food, and just kept checking back on them and stuff. And both the mother and grandmother passed away, and they went into social services. But for that time, while she was still there, the mother and the grandmother, they were taken care of for that time. But it was just, and they just kept thanking Cap, you know, for the mother and the grandmother did for saving the babies. We didn't save them by no means, but for that time period that, you know, they got to stay with their mom before she passed away. We were there. You can't put it into a sentence. You know, I feel like you'd have to give a huge definition, you know, just a story, if you will. It's a story. Cap is a story in itself. To me, it's the most important job in the world.